Welcome to the Scott and Brandon Show, a show where we entertain the pressing biblical, social, and political issues of today. My name is Scott Jackson, and this is my co-host, Brandon Ulmer. Our aim is to have open conversations about serious topics and to build up the body of Christ in the process. If you're interested in theology, applying scriptural principles to our daily lives, or political and social issues as they relate to Christianity, you'll definitely want to tune in. This is the Scott and Brandon Show. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Scott and Brandon Show. My name is Scott, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Brandon, here. And today, we're going to be talking about just some post-election craziness that's going on at the moment. Last week, we said we'd probably be dialing down the political talk over the next couple weeks. There's just a lot of stuff developing right now that we wanted to kind of touch on. And, everything from some foreign policy things that are being accomplished by Donald Trump right now, and he's only the president-elect, to some social issues that are going on at the moment that we wanted to discuss with all of you and possibly get all of your thoughts on it as well. So, Brandon, election is obviously over. We've got some of the final results from the Senate that have just come in over the last couple days. The Republicans have secured 53 seats in the Senate, which is about 4 more seats more than what they had effectively. And also they have the presidency, so they have an effective 54 seats because J.D. Vance would be a tiebreaker of any sort. House of Representatives is still out, but it's looking like the Republicans are going to take control again. You need 218 seats for the majority. I think the Republicans have secured 214, and the Democrats have secured 205. So there are still a few seats left to be judged. And right now we're waiting for a race in Alaska to come back, a race in Iowa to come back, a couple races in California to come back. And I think there's one in Arizona that we're waiting to come back.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing about California. They're showing the post-election results, and California is starting to make a swing toward red.
It is pretty red. Like the red wave is.
It's coming.
Yeah. And it's only the coastline of California that is really blue right now.
Yeah. So that is intriguing. Like, how much more longer is the blue going to be able to hold out? Because that can become a very strong Republican state.
Yeah, it could be. And I think the country is trending that way. We kind of talked about that a little bit last week, but the amount of people and the different types of people that came together to vote for Donald Trump this time around, it just floored me, because it wasn't a campaign that was won off of white men like the liberals want you to think it was. It was a campaign won by Hispanics, by women, by men and women of color, but predominantly, African American men in the country broke for Donald Trump in record numbers as well.
50% of the male African. I
think it was 21% at the final exit poll. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he got 15% of the total black vote.
Got it.
Which blew my mind.
Yeah.
He got 46% of the Hispanic vote, which is the most by any Republican president in, I think, modern history.
I think he got 52% of the white women.
Yep. Yeah, he got about 52% of the white women, which the Democrats were banking on that demographic to carry Kamala Harris over the finish line with their abortion issue. But obviously that didn't work, because women buy eggs and milk much more often than they kill babies. So I think the inflation issue and immigration and the economy was much more important to these women than being able to kill your baby, which you can already do in a lot of states. So
yeah, it was not a good night for the Democrat Party, and I am just still sitting back and enjoying them losing. It was a great night, but there's been so many things that have occurred after this election that I found fascinating. Trump is already getting busy to work. He's already
He is.
doing stuff, and I want to talk about that. But the Democrats, they can't get over on how much they have just lost, and they're trying to figure out what did we do wrong, and they're blaming everybody. Did you see Bernie Sanders coming out and just saying this is why the Democrat Party lost? We have moved so far to the left as far as not being for the working family.
Yep.
Right. And Nancy Pelosi gets pissed off at Bernie Sanders for doing that. She lashes out.
Yeah.
And she throws her 2 cents in. I mean, the Democrat Party right now is, one, they have no identity. And because they have no identity, they can't unify behind anything. And because they can't unify behind anything, they're really a fractured party at this point.
Yeah.
And operating more as independents instead of one unified party.
Right.
And the only thing that unifies them is the title Democrat. That's the only thing. At this point, they're so discombobulated. They're so fractured. I don't even know who they're going to pick for the next to run next.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a few obvious names out there. I think Gavin Newsom would probably be in the running. There's no sitting Democrat president to worry about right now, so there's obviously going to be an open primary. Maybe they handpicked their last candidate, so they might handpick their next one also. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned how the Democratic Party is so disjointed right now, because traditionally speaking, that's been the Republican Party for like the last 30 years. They've never really been able to unify behind one person. They've never really been able to unify behind one ideal or set of ideals. And
until Trump came along in 2016.
Right, until Trump came along in 2016.
And he defined, this is what we're going to stand for.
Right. Well, and like even as recently as 2020, we saw the Democratic Party walk in lockstep with each other, because Bernie Sanders started winning the first few primaries, and the Democratic Party was like, no, we can't have this. We can't have this geriatric socialist win the nomination. So they completely went against Bernie Sanders, completely screwed the guy, and got Joe Biden to be their candidate. So the fact that the Democratic Party is so disjointed right now is obviously encouraging if you're a Republican, because right now it's looking like the Republicans are the popular idea amongst the people in the country right now. I mean, Donald Trump won. I think he won the popular vote by 4 million votes.
Yeah.
Which, to my understanding, is the largest margin for any Republican candidate in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won. I believe he got 50.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris got 48.1%.
Wow.
So Donald Trump came in at 75,112,005 votes. Kamala Harris came in at 71,816,262.
Yeah.
So, the Democrats, their ideas, America has obviously spoken, and they've spoken in large numbers. And the only reason why I think Republicans are even talking about the popular vote right now is because the Democrats have been shoving that down our throat for the last 20 years, since Bush won it in 2004. Because they're saying the Electoral College is bad and it's an archaic system and we need to go off the popular vote. Like, well, okay, if you want to, the people have still spoken, and Donald Trump is still the president. So I'm excited to see what develops. I do think everybody else, and I say everybody else, like the powers that be, the people on Wall Street and your big company owners like Jeff Bezos, even Mark Cuban, like those guys came out, they were like stumping for Kamala Harris, but I mean, don't get it mistaken. Those guys wanted Donald Trump to win because it's going to be much better for their corporations. I mean, we saw the stock market react in record ways. Even on election night, I think the Dow increased by 1,000 points. So, and Bitcoin also shot up to like 75,000, which was
I know. I'm
pretty interesting.
I really want to buy some Bitcoin right now, but it's like, oh man, it's so pricey.
And as of today, it's 87,000.
That is crazy.
So it's gone up It's
now.
gone up, 10,000, 12,000 since election day.
Yeah, it is time now. I said it on the last bonus episode we did. If you're not buying or investing in the stock market, it is time now to start doing that. I started doing
Yeah.
it. There's so many apps out there where you can purchase stocks and things like that. So it's definitely time. But going back to the Democrat thing, and I was trying to find the story on it, but he's either senator or congressman, but he is so frustrated with the Democrat Party, but that he was talking about how he is worried with his daughters
Yeah.
going to a bathroom and there be some trans guy in there, right?
Yeah.
And because he said that now, you're not supposed to say that as a Democrat.
No.
But he's saying this now after the election, right? Because I think he's realized people are standing up for their values. And this wokeism stuff is not going to cut it anymore.
No.
You can't do it because you're gonna keep losing. And like I said, if you go woke, you're gonna go broke, right? And now this guy's getting canceled. I'm trying to find the name of the guy and if he was a senator or congressman, but I think it paints a perfect good picture. Is that now the Democrats are too nervous to stand up for values.
Mm-hmm.
They're too nervous to address those. And that is fundamentally what I believe was the downfall of the Democrat race.
You think it was the transgender issue primarily, or just...
I think it's just across the board.
Yeah, the fact that they can't really stand up for any sort of moral issues.
Moral issues, but also just important issues in general from the economy, right? Yeah, they touched on it a little bit, but she never really offered a solid plan in what she was going to do, right? I mean, yes, drop the tax rate and whatever else she wanted to do. I think to help boost the economy, whatever her plan was. I don't even really.
She didn't really have one.
She didn't really have one. I'm trying to defend her here, but I can't. Right?
Yeah.
But it was not addressing the issues that are serious for Americans, such as the economy. We're all sick and tired of paying what we have to pay for stuff. We shouldn't have to be paying that much for stuff.
Right.
Right. And then the moral issues, the wokeism stuff. People are sick and tired of it. And it shows with Trump and the Republican Party. We don't care. If you want to be LGBTQ plus, cool. Don't really care at all.
Yeah.
Just don't shove it and force it down my throat and force me to comply.
Yeah, I think that's been the Republican position for the last 8 years or so. 12 years. Probably 12 years when Barack Obama finally started running on a platform of, pro LGBTQ.
Yeah.
I think that's been the Republican position. Is like, okay, which actually in reality is a very libertarian position, because it's just, look, we don't care what you do in your own privacy. Just leave us and leave our kids out of it.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the Democrats they don't have the capability to come out and say, hey, we think this is wrong. Like, hey, we think mutilating children so that they can transition genders at 10 years old is wrong. We think that's wrong. We want you to be able to do it, but you should wait till you're an adult. They've never had any sort of reasonable break in their philosophies. Like, they are the slippery slope champions. They see a slippery slope and they just go head first. And they've never been able to come out and say, okay, that's a little too far. Especially involving children. They're not able to come out and stop their own ideology, because they have been so ingrained to think that their opinion and their viewpoint is the popular viewpoint in the country. And it's obviously not anymore. They've run too far to the left. And my favorite thing about this whole election cycle, and what gives me hope about some sustained success for the Republican Party, is the fact that a lot of Democrats right now are infighting with each other. Some of them are saying that, hey, we need to run back to the middle. And a lot of them are saying, hey, we didn't run far enough to the left. We're not liberal enough. And there's people out there that are saying that Bernie Sanders and Stacey Abrams needs to be their next Democratic ticket. I'm like, please make that your next Democratic ticket. That would be wonderful. I would love that so much. But yeah, it's just, I do think there is some hope for the Republican Party to have a little bit of sustained success, which we haven't really seen.
Yeah.
There's been few Republican presidents over the last 40 years, but it's been primarily Democrats in office.
Yeah. And I think we're going to have 2 years roughly of at least Republican control, right? Because
it's looking like that. Yes.
Yeah, in 2 years they got to run again, and we'll see if they hold the line, right? But 2 years that Trump gets for basically uninterrupted whatever he wants. Obviously, he's not going to be a dictator, as a lot of these people are worrying about.
Sounds like a dictator to me, Brandon.
He's going to be a dictator. Oh, my goodness.
My favorite... Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you for a second. My favorite nickname that I heard for Donald Trump, I think, came from Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire, and he calls him the Mango Mussolini.
The Mango Mussolini.
Oh, my goodness.
I just don't understand how people see how he's going to be a dictator.
I don't either. No one actually believes that. Well, okay. No one in the Democrat Party establishment actually believes that he's Hitler. Because, if they actually believed he was Hitler, they would have a moral obligation to not certify the election. If they actually believed he was Hitler, they would have a moral obligation to do everything they can to keep this man out of office, regardless if the people voted for him or not. But they don't. Kamala Harris flat out said she concedes, and she's going to certify the election. There's going to be a peaceful transfer of power. And you know what's funny? There's going to be another peaceful transfer of power in 4 years if the Republicans don't win. But they're afraid that Donald Trump's going to serve, and then J.D. Vance is going to serve for the rest of his life. And it's just going to be a dystopian nightmare, which is not necessarily true. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, so we see here, I said in my opinion here, the Democrats lost because they did not pay attention to the seriousness of the values and economic issues that people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. They decided to go after these bigger things, right, such as reproductive rights for women and really
reproductive rights.
Right? There's other things I've seen, such as she didn't have enough time to do
I did hear that as well.
Her policies out there. And I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that I've seen surface across my phone devices. Reasons why she failed in gaining the support. Obviously, the one is that people are racist because they don't want to, and misogynist.
Right.
That's the other reason, right? Which is a crazy absurd because we've already had a black president. Race was not the issue here, but the Democrats, the left, is citing that race was an issue, and they're citing that her gender was the issue. That's why she couldn't get to the top.
Yeah.
And like I said, the Democrat Party's fractured. They have no unifying member, right?
Yep.
They are a house that is divided, as Jesus said himself. I was reading yesterday in my study, right? Jesus is being blamed that he's casting out a demon by Satan, right? And Jesus is like, how can Satan cast out Satan? It doesn't make any sense. A house divided is not going to stand. The same thing. The Democrat Party is a house divided.
Yep.
Right? And so it's going to be interesting to see how they grow out of it. Either they're going to wake up, pull their pants up, and realize and accept responsibility. That's going to be the big thing, that they were wrong in how they...
Yeah, I think they will eventually, but it might take another election cycle. It might take another time for them to lose, for them to actually realize that, hey, maybe our ideas aren't as popular as we think they are.
Yeah, yeah. And
especially when people go from... There was a stark difference between Trump's economy and the Biden-Harris economy. but it's going to be easier for people to see it. Going from Trump's economy, then going to Biden-Harris's economy, and now back to Trump's economy. I think people are going to see, oh, hey, that guy's economy was better, because there was a little bit of recency bias with a lot of people regarding the economy. And what I'm not entirely sure the polls were correct on this issue, but it said that Kamala Harris was only running, I think, 5 or 6 points below Donald Trump on the economy. And when she first got into the race, it was double digits, So I do think there's going to be an improved way of life. I am excited to see how the economy improves, how things become more affordable, and how interest rates start to go down, which interest rates have already started to go down since Trump's election. I think they're down at like 4.5% right now.
Yeah, the interest rates already dropped. And so the other thing with the Democrat Party, and that's one of the other reasons I saw, is the blame on Joe Biden.
Yeah, that was a popular one, I think.
Yeah, and it still is. I mean, even Nancy, Pelosi is placing blame on Joe Biden for not, one, probably dropping out earlier as he should have, right? And there's even calls now for him to go ahead and resign.
Yeah, so Kamala Harris can be president.
And this is crazy, absurd. Like, are you people nuts? And I don't know what to expect anymore of the Democrat Party. But I said it's going to be interesting watching their development now, between now and the next election. Can they unify, or are they still going to go for these woke ideals, these woke values? And as long as you do that, as they said, they're going to go woke, you're going to go broke. They're going to lose, right? We'll lose those votes. By some miraculous chance, could they win? Yeah, there's always that chance. But
yeah, I think my opinion, and I guess kind of prediction for what the Democratic Party is going to look like, I think it's going to take them a little while to course correct, because, back in 2012, even 2016, the far left branch of the party was a minority in the Democratic base. But now, in 2020, and especially 2024, there are so many different diversity groups that are represented. You got LGBTQ. They've got their anti-Israel branch of the party. They've got their pro-Israel branch of the party. They've got their free market branch of the party. They've got their socialist branch of the party.
Do you think if she had selected Shapiro, she would
have won Pennsylvania?
No.
She would have won Pennsylvania for sure. Now, it turns out it wouldn't have made much of a difference, because Donald Trump also won Wisconsin and Michigan.
Yeah.
And typically the blue wall states vote in lockstep together. They did in 2016, they did in 2020, they did in 2024. Typically, if someone wins one of them, they win all of them. But I do think her chances of getting elected would have been much better if she chose Shapiro as her VP. But I think the reason why is twofold. I think the primary reason is because he's Jewish, and they didn't want to, offend their pro-Hamas side of the party. I think the secondary,
because you had the huge Muslim community in Michigan.
Vote, which actually came out and endorsed Donald Trump.
Yeah. So that was interesting. That they're playing.
Well, the reason why is because he wants peace.
Yeah.
It's not even that he's pro-Hamas. Like the liberals think that in order to get, we'll use the Muslims for an example. In order to get the Muslim vote, you have to cater to their most extreme positions.
Yeah.
No.
You have appeasement. You must appease.
Donald Trump is the most pro-Israel president we've ever had. And the Muslims came out and endorsed him, primarily in Michigan. But it's because he wants peace. It's not because he's, catering and pandering to Hamas. It's because he wants peace in the region.
Yeah.
And so do they. So I do think the secondary reason why Shapiro wasn't chosen is because he's a much more talented politician than she is.
Yeah.
He's got a 60% of approval rating in a purple state. As a Democratic governor, he's a much more talented politician than she is, and he would have definitely overshadowed her. And he probably, say a Harris Shapiro ticket wins in 2024, he almost definitely would have the popularity to primary her in 2028. So, because she's not popular at all. She's not, no one actually looks at Kamala Harris and says, that's what I want for my president. Not because she's a woman, because she's a terrible person and a terrible politician.
Where does Kamala go after her vice presidency?
Yeah, I think she's got two choices here, and it may not be up to her. I think she can either unify the party and, you know, she can have a unifying message, say we need to take down the rhetoric, surround herself with some talented people that can maybe help her out, and she could be the face of the Democratic Party moving forward, or she can fade into obscurity. And I think the latter is probably more likely.
Yeah, because they're not going to let her run. The Democrats are not.
No, they won't. They've got two. So I don't like these people, generally speaking, but they've got too many more talented politicians than Kamala Harris to put on to put on a primary ticket, right? I guarantee you, Gavin Newsom runs. I bet Amy Klobuchar runs again.
What about Shapiro? You think Shapiro will run?
I think he would be crazy not to. Just because his name was being tossed around so much for the VP pick. I guarantee you Tim Walz tries to run.
I guess to run. I mean, it'd be a doomed failure from the start if he did.
Yeah, it's just the primary that we're talking about, though. You know, I mean, his campaign would probably look like the Harris campaign in 2019, 2020. But, and speaking of Tim Walz, the Democrats, specifically the Kamala Harris campaign, are citing him as a major reason as to why they lost.
Well, that is another reason, yeah.
Because he's unpalatable. He's not likable.
No, he's not. And they try to make him like he's this man's man type thing. And that just...
He's not.
Did not work.
Right.
At all. Even with his military background. Just did not work. And...
Well, and like, did you see that video of him trying to load a shotgun?
Yeah, I saw that. That was I cringed.
A common comeback to that from the left side of the aisle was, well, Donald Trump couldn't load a shotgun either. And I'm like, Donald Trump's not claiming to be this hunting, aficionado.
Yeah.
He's not claiming to have all of these guns. Tim Walz is saying he's a gun guy and he was in the military and he's a hunter and they got the camo Harris Walz hat and all this nonsense and he can't even load his Beretta. But Donald Trump doesn't claim to be any of those things.
Yeah, and
he just claims to support your right to have a gun.
Yeah, and it's just like don't profess something you're not. I'll be honest.
And that was the story of the Harris Walz campaign, in my opinion.
Yeah, it
was just projecting things that they aren't.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. Like, would I be? And obviously, I was laughing at the video. And would I be fast loading a shotgun? I'm going to say probably not, because I just don't handle a shotgun. I don't have a shotgun. Now, you give me an M4, right?
Yeah.
Man, I can take that thing apart and put it back blindfolded. I know that. I know how to load that thing fast and quick, combat reload, speed drills, all those type of things, because that's what I trained with all the time, or when I was definitely in the military. But don't claim something you're
right.
not. And that's what the Democrat Party is certainly. They're
well, and like a shotgun
right now,
and this is a minor issue. Like a shotgun is not a very complicated firearm.
It's not.
As far as firearms are concerned. Like I have a 12 gauge shotgun. It holds 5 shells. And it's really not difficult. Like the first time I took it out of the box, it was kind of intuitive how to work it.
Yeah.
How to now I've been around firearms a lot of my life. I wouldn't say, I'm not a hunter. But my grandpa has had firearms as long as I've been alive, and he probably has more than I'm aware of. But he's always brought us, like I started shooting when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah. And
just learning firearm safety. And I don't think the way Tim Walz was trying to load that gun is the best way to hold it. I don't hold my shotgun like that when I try to load it. But yeah, that's a minor point, but it is funny because like the whole story of the Harris Walz campaign is they're trying to blend in and be whatever they need to be to get elected. And this was openly known. This was known across the entire Democratic Party, and they thought it was going to work. There was a poll taken of what animal they most thought Kamala Harris was represented by. They're like, so when you see Kamala Harris, what animal do you think of? And everyone said chameleon, which is pretty funny. So
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, as far as the Harris-Walz campaign, it's over, thank goodness. It ended with the concession speech.
Thank goodness that it's over. The Democrat Party's all loose heads now. We get at least solid 2 years of conservative or Republican values. I'm not saying I agree with everything in the Republican Party, but at least overall, by far, I'm very happy. I am very pleased. Drill, baby, drill. I am so excited. I just can't wait.
You sound like a racist fascist.
I know. I can't wait for Trump to take office. But you know what's really cool is that Trump hasn't even taken office. I mean, literally within 36 to 48 hours, Trump has not even taken office, and foreign policy is already being affected within 36 to 48 hours of him being declared president-elect.
Yeah, and this is a good thing to touch on, I think. So what are some of those foreign policy accomplishments that have happened?
You had Hamas come out and said, hey, we need a peace deal. We need it now, basically.
They don't want to be blown up.
No, they don't, because they know Trump's going to allow it. Trump will allow it. And the way you get peace is through superior strength and firepower, right? As the old adage goes, if you want peace, you must prepare for war, right? If you are prepared for war, no one's going to mess with you, right? Unless they're stupid enough to do that. And so Hamas is saying, we need a peace deal, and we need it now. Okay? So that's amazing, all right?
Yeah.
That's going to push toward the direction of peace in the Middle East, right? So you have that being affected. You also had a confirmed conversation with Trump and Zelensky, and even Elon Musk was on that call. We don't know exactly
that's interesting.
what they talked about. Yeah, we don't know what they talked about, but very interesting. But he also had a phone conversation with Vladimir Putin, and it's being reported that he told Putin, do not escalate anything in the Ukrainian theater front at this point. And he reminded Vladimir Putin of the strength of the U.S. military.
Yeah.
And obviously Putin has come out and said, we want to proceed in the direction of a peace agreement, of ending this war.
Yeah.
That is amazing. The two already wars that are already in the direction of they want to end. And he's not even president yet.
Well, and that's what he said he would do, right? And I even thought, like, okay, that might be a little, I'm like, Trump, dude, that might be a little much to promise before you're even inaugurated that you're going to end these wars. It looks like he might do it.
Yeah, it does.
And I think that's the story, and honestly the legacy of Donald Trump is he makes these promises and he actually does them.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, like it or not, has a goal and he gets it accomplished. And it's amazing. And I think the Americans have just been so conditioned to hear politicians make promises on the campaign trail, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And they're like, we're not really voting for you for that. We're voting for you because we don't like the other guy. And I think people are actually voting for Trump because they believe what he says. And that is a rare commodity amongst politicians. But, you bring up Russia and Putin. I think, Ben Shapiro tells a story about Donald Trump's he had said he had a conversation with Donald Trump about Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
And he's like, Ben, I had a conversation with Vladimir Putin. And I said, Putin, he goes, Vlad, he said, if you invade Ukraine, I'm going to bomb the crap out of you. And he didn't say crap. And Vladimir Putin replies, well, no, you won't, Mr. President. And he goes, maybe not, but I might.
Yeah.
And it turns out, but I might is really effective foreign policy. So I think that's just going to pick back up with players like China, like Russia, even North Korea now getting involved in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, allegedly. I do think Donald Trump is going to be a stabilizing force on a global scale.
Oh, yeah.
I do think he's going to stabilize the country, but he's definitely going to stabilize the geopolitical relations between countries.
Yep.
So I'm very interested to see how all of this develops. And I do think it's going to be a net positive for everybody involved because, like we talked about last week on Election Day, people in other countries wanted Donald Trump to win.
Yeah.
They did a poll in Israel about who they wanted to win the election. I think it was like 80-20 in favor of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So people around the world know, even in Europe, they go out on their UN podium and they talk about how much they don't like Donald Trump, blah blah blah. But it's the same as these, corporate, mega billionaires and stuff that we have in our country, like Jeff Bezos and the like.
Yeah.
They stump for Kamala Harris, but they don't actually want her to win. They're just doing it because they're obligated to an ideology. And I think it's the same for European leaders like Emmanuel Macron and some other people over there in Europe, that they openly say they don't want Donald Trump to win, but the fact that he won, they're like, hey, this is going to be good for the world, I think.
Yeah, and now we have to deal with it, right? And so you have two already major foreign policy issues that are already being affected, and he's not even in office, right? The other one is China. China has come out, and they had a conversation with Trump, and basically what's being reported is that China warned, they congratulated Trump, but they warned of their strong economic policy, things like that. And Trump doesn't give 2 cents about it because he knows China needs U.S. economy.
They do.
China's economy is not doing good, and so you think that's going to sway Trump in any way? No, Trump already knows he has the winning hand,
and nothing really sways Donald Trump to begin with, which is a great feature to have. He's very stubborn.
Yeah, and so he has secured Western hegemony that Trump has.
Yeah,
right, and
at least for the next 4 years.
At least for the next 4 years, so Western hegemony is secured, and military might and power is secured, economic security is secured, all in just one guy, which is amazing. The amount of power and influence that he has is literally beyond astounding, that God has allowed Trump to have.
Well, and the amount of respect he has amongst other world leaders, I think, is the primary difference between him being the president and Kamala Harris being the president. Is if Harris was the president, no one, and I said this last week, no one would respect her. No one would take her seriously, and they would just go do whatever they want. If Harris won the election, China would invade Taiwan next year.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be on hold. This period between election day and inauguration makes me a little nervous on a few different fronts. I think there's the likelihood of increased illegal immigration. Because
there is a caravan already heading this way, and they are trying to get here.
Yeah. And the illegals are, and that's a very unpopular thing to call them, but the illegal immigrants are marking January 20th as their deadline to get into the country. I do think there is the slight possibility that things get a little unstable on the global scale for the next couple months. So it'll be interesting to see if Donald Trump's able to stabilize those situations before he actually takes office.
I think I disagree. I think everyone's too nervous now to do anything.
They may be.
I think
the only person that makes me nervous is China. I think that's a player that no one really talks about. And I think China could take it one of two ways. I think they could see it as, we'll take your opinion that he's going to stabilize everything and China's going to back off and put their plans of invading Taiwan for the next put them off for the next 4 years. Or they're going to say, look, if we want to do it, we got to do it now. And the person in charge is Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not the president right now. He may have a lot of influence. He may have a lot of power of persuasion for people, but he's not the guy who controls the military right now. Joe Biden is. And that guy's asleep, and he's been asleep for the last couple of years. So I am anxious to see how it plays out. I think you're probably right. I think things probably calm down as far as the global tensions between countries.
Yeah, things have calmed down, and I think things have been deterred. Have they been stopped? Don't know yet.
Yeah.
We'll see what Trump does, but I think things definitely have been deterred for at least 4 years, and I think we're going to experience, as Trump said, an age, America's golden age. I do think that, and I think it's gonna be amazing. So you're talking about this last caravan that's trying to make its way. Trump is already, and he's acting faster because this shows you the intensity of how fast Trump is going to hit the ground running, all right, when he is in on day one. It's already being reported they are drafting up executive orders for day one for him to sign. So you're going to have that going down on day one. The other thing you have is that Trump has already started filling in the slots. Right? We have his new border czar, which is a very strict hardliner.
Hardcore border czar, yeah.
Very hardcore. Tom Homan or Haman, I don't know how to say his last name.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
He's rock and rolling. And you know who's being rumored? I'm very curious to see here. Well, let's before I do that, what I think is really cool, it made history. Again, Trump made history.
Yes, he did.
Right? He put his chief of staff in, is the first female ever. And I can't remember her name. Is it Susie?
Susan Wiles.
Yeah, Susan Wiles.
Yeah, right? She was his campaign manager, I think.
Yep, campaign manager. She ran an awesome campaign, as he stated, and she certainly did. So she gets the first ever chief of staff position, first female to ever.
Which I think she'll be good. I think she'll be good. I do like the people that Trump is surrounding himself with this time around.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see, but it is being rumored that Marco Rubio would be.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the cabinet. Yep.
Would be a Secretary of State.
Yeah, it could be.
I just saw he put in somebody for Department of Homeland Security, but I don't remember the name of it. But I mean, the main thing here is that Trump is already appointing people, where back in 2016, it didn't occur till after.
Yeah, he's getting his team together now, and I'm excited because he'll be able to hit the ground running as soon as his presidency starts. I think it'll be really good. I think another person up for Secretary of State is I think there's a possibility that Rick Scott, the senator in Florida, is also or is he a congressman? I think he might be a congressman. I can't remember, but I do think there's a possibility that he's up as well. So we'll see. I do like who Trump is surrounding himself with this time around. I think it's going to be really good for his presidency. So
I think even though much as it did suck for him to lose his second election, right, when he ran the second time to Biden, I think it paid off in huge dividends. That one, people were allowed to see woke Democrat policies in full effect. And
right.
to see what that was done. But I believe it also allowed for Trump to sit back and analyze, all right, what would I do different?
Yeah.
What do I need to do? All right. And I think you're seeing that. You're seeing the last 4 years of him evaluating that and going over in his mind. And now you're going to see a very effective and a very determined, and I would say
Yeah. Well, and if Trump won in 2020, the House and the Senate very likely would have still been Democrat controlled. So he wouldn't really have been able to do much for the beginning part of his presidency. So I'm excited that we do have a unified government, and moving into his presidency, I think it's going to be really good, and his administration is going to be really effective this time around. I think they're going to be able to undo a lot of what Joe Biden did immediately because of how Joe Biden so heavily relied on executive order. So
one we also have, which I'm very curious to see, the Environmental Protection Agency. I don't know much about him, but Lee Zeldin, he is the new guy to lead the EPA, right? Which
that'll be good.
I know a lot of what comes out from the EPA is what affects blue collar workers, right? And so I'm very interested to see what he does. I don't know anything about Lee Zeldin. Do you?
I don't know much about him personally, but I know he's pretty conservative. So,
so talking about his cabinet, I'm just looking at some of what already has been confirmed and what has yet to be actually confirmed. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Christie. All right, Noam. I can't pronounce her.
Yeah, Kristi Noem. She's the governor of South Dakota.
Right? She is apparently in the running for Department of Homeland Security.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So she's in the running for that one as well. Attorney General. All right. Although no name has been announced, we have Senator Mike Lee.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's been thrown in there.
Yep. Mark Paoletta is another one. John Ratcliffe, Aileen Cannon, and Kash Patel. All right, so certainly some big names right there. That would be great. Obviously, we already mentioned Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. We have UN Ambassador Trump announced. All right, that would be Elise Stefanik. All right, I don't know anything about that person. All right. Obviously, Tom Homan is the new border czar. And, man, so stop working on me the webpage. So industry, I'm very excited. I'm gonna go back to Marco Rubio. If he's put in a Secretary of State, that's going to be amazing. I think he's going to do phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah. So with just, I wish I had a countdown. We need a countdown to how many days until inauguration. I think we're under 70 now.
I think we are, yeah.
Yeah. With less than 70 days out till inauguration. You have VP Kamala right now, who still has to certify everything on January the 6th.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah, that'll be ironic. That'll be funny. I do think it's funny that the person who's been defeated has to certify her own defeat.
Yes.
Which is great.
And she's going to be just seething, and I would feel animosity in that moment as she has to certify the January 6th results, right? And obviously the 20th, he is inaugurated as president.
Yeah, that's 69 days away, by the way. I just looked it up.
All right, sweet.
So we are just under 70. Yeah.
Right, so we're going to start that countdown down till, I don't know what we call it a countdown. Maybe the countdown to America's golden age starts, right? Officially. So, I'm gonna be saying it. I have buddies. Again, I've tried to talk to them, and some I still need to talk to them, but they're worried. They are absolutely worried that Trump is going to be a dictator, and he's going to use the military as an arm of his dictatorship, and just really subdue and control America.
Yeah, which obviously he's not.
It is not the case. And by all means, the day that happens, I will certainly get on this podcast and apologize and say to everybody, you were right.
Right.
But and I'm going to be touting still from now till the end of his administration that he's not going to do that. And that, we're going to see, I believe, one of the greatest moments in American history as far as the economy goes, as far as military, geopolitics, world power, everything that we long for and hope for because we believe in our country. I think we're about to actually get to see. And all these people that are crying their liberal tears because they're so fed up and worried. And by the way, did you see what the FBI is investigating that went out?
No.
This message that went out to all not to all African Americans, but I guess to a good chunk of them. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. I saw something about how there was a FEMA guy who refused to give assistance to Trump supporters.
Yeah, that just paints the left even more in
that's just
ugly.
Evil.
Yeah, it is. So this FEMA guy, and it has been confirmed, and he's been fired.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
I don't know the name. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. Actually,
I think it was a man. I think his last name was Washington, but I couldn't remember.
He's just told for those who are not aware of it, he told the FEMA workers working for FEMA, don't go to anybody's house and offer support who has a Trump flag or poster out there. So that's been confirmed. All right. The other thing, FBI is investigating. Apparently, a text message went out. I guess on election night after it was announced that Trump won, or it might have been the day after. But a text message went out to, as I understand it, a good chunk of African Americans. They're trying to figure out how it happened, but telling the African American that here's your plantation number. You'll be picked up in a van and taken to plantation number, whatever it is.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. Obviously, horrific, horrible joke. Whoever did it, I do hope they do figure that out. But with the 69 days until inauguration, we're going to see just. I'm going to keep preaching it from this podcast here, we're going to about to see the golden age of America. I firmly believe that, and
I'm inclined to believe you. Yeah,
I'm super stoked and excited. I just can't wait.
yeah. So we talked a little bit about where we think the Democratic Party is going to go and what their future looks like. What do you think the Republican Party looks like? We've got this new look for the Republican Party as far as its voter base and as far as, who's voting Republican and who, it's now kind of the popular thing to be a conservative. It's believe it or not, it's very popular with Gen Z. I think Donald Trump won 50% of the vote that was under the age of 30. So that was surprising as well. But where do you think the Republican Party goes from here? How do you think we sustain the success that we've had in 2024?
So I remember telling a friend that, when Abraham Lincoln was running for president, right? He was the first Republican.
Yeah.
To actually, to secure that. And what did the Republican run on? Right? And we see it obviously used later in his reelection, right? But the Republicans were running on, this anti-slavery policy during the prior to Civil War, and then obviously during the Civil War eventually came to fruition, right? But also keeping the federal government intact as well, right? The Union intact, right? And the Democrat Party was running on pro-slavery, right? Independence of the states. And I'm not going to get all those things like that. But when Abraham Lincoln won, it created and solidified the Republican Party, right?
Yeah.
That was a very historical moment. And I said to my buddy I was talking to that if Trump wins, we're going to see that. We're going to see a very historical moment of the solidification of Trumpism. And now the Republican Party is still the Republican Party, but now it is unified by a Trump persona. I want to say Trumpism, right? And what is Trumpism? Right? Trumpism is to announce what you stand for and what you believe in and have no shame in stating that. Right? And be about America first. Right? Country first, patriotism. There's a whole bunch of conglomerate of other things that we can put under this umbrella of Trumpism. And with that, I think what we're going to see here with the Republican Party is that now the Republican Party is here to stay, but it will be guided by Trumpism, right? And you're going to have these Republicans that are running, right? Trumpists, if that's part of their, titles or whatever the case is. But everything's going to be guided by really the light of President Trump. And so you're going to see the Republican Party here move forward in that direction and to continue to move forward in that direction, right? And then 50 years from now, I'll see we'll be old.
Yeah,
it'll be 80 years old, but you're going to have these young politicians, that are going to be classified as, and refer to Trump. And this is what I stand for. I'm like Trump. I'm like President Trump.
Yep.
That is just as Reagan is referred back to that. Reaganomics, Reagan economics, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the direction of the Republican Party, is what I see. And I believe as long as they hold to American ideals and values, they're going to be here to stay, and they're going to be a formidable political opponent to deal with. Unlike the Democrat Party, unless the Democrat Party can unify.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of the seismic shift that we've had this time around is pretty evident. The Republican Party seems very unified, seems very goal-oriented at the moment, seems very objective-oriented. They're going to get some stuff done. And the Democratic Party is kind of flailing at the moment, not really knowing why they lost. They haven't lost a whole lot over the last 30 years or so.
Yeah.
So it is going to be very interesting to see how this develops. I am obviously hoping and praying that the country kind of stabilizes itself. The economy stabilizes, the disunity amongst Americans stabilizes. And I do think a lot of these things are able to happen over the next several years under a Trump administration. And I hope the Democratic Party gets a little bit less crazy. Not that I necessarily would vote for them, but I do hope they get a little bit less crazy.
Yeah.
Their rhetoric about how any Republican running for president is a fascist and is the newest Hitler is a little ridiculous, and I don't think anybody actually believes it. So I do hope that they kind of tamper that and kind of come to their senses as far as like, hey, okay, you know, we may disagree on things like foreign policy, tax policy, even social policy, but you're still an American fundamentally. And we're not going to say that, you know, half of America or over half of America is evil or garbage, as Joe Biden called Donald Trump supporters in the waning days of the election. So garbage. Yeah. And I'm sorry. Donald Trump buying a garbage truck and wearing the whole vest and everything. That was the funniest thing to me. I thought it was hilarious.
It was great. It was absolutely phenomenal.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, and just to kind of summarize, the Democratic Party seems very disjointed, seems very out of sync with each other and with the country. The Republican Party, on the other hand, is bringing in people from all walks of life. They are making other people's viewpoints heard. They are becoming the party of the working class, which is interesting because predominantly that's been, you know, the pro-union, the pro-blue collar, everything has been it's been oriented at the Democratic Party for years and years and years. And to see that shift this election was also, I think, very interesting in just one facet of Donald Trump's complete, decisive victory last week. So very excited to see where the country goes from here. I'm excited to see. I'd like to see. You know, I'm curious to see how Christians kind of respond to this. There were a lot of Christians that wanted Kamala Harris to win, oddly enough.
Somebody else than Kamala Harris, because I do know Christians that didn't want Trump to win.
Yeah,
but I know.
Yeah,
excuse me. They didn't want Kamala obviously to win either. They wanted somebody else to win.
Yeah, so very interesting to see how all of this developed. Obviously excited with the election results. Excited to see how the country stabilizes itself. I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of calming down of the rhetoric,
as we talked about leading up to the election, right? And I was preparing for it because I firmly believed, or I had an inclination inside that the Democrats would win this election, right? And so I was preparing, and I kept going over and what we've been talking about since day one. God is on the throne. God is sovereign, right?
Right.
And that still applies. So those Christians that, you're anti-Trump or you don't like the guy and you don't want him to get it, who's on the throne still? God is
absolutely
on the throne. And he holds the heart of the king.
Right? Absolutely.
And so that still applies to this scenario here.
Yeah.
And so, I'm excited. I can't wait. And so obviously, I still want to discuss. We'll discuss some more, political things as they come about. But next week, I'm looking at, we should discuss because Elon Musk was a little worried about it, but censorship, right?
Yeah, censorship, free speech, yeah,
and things of that nature. I think we're still in for that. And although I think
that is what the left is going to shoot for, because they probably think that misinformation and disinformation caused Donald Trump to win again. So
exactly. So I think we need to talk about those and what is, how the Christians should respond to those things and so forth. So, some good topics coming up in the next few episodes. Obviously, we've got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up too as well.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, so
it'll be good. Yeah. So obviously very happy with the election results. The next few episodes, we're probably going to try to, we'll like you said earlier, we'll talk about politics as it's relevant, but because that is a part of our show. But other parts of our show is also theological, Christian-based topics, and even pressing social topics like censorship and things like that, free speech, and how the Christians should maybe respond to those things. So we're excited to dive into those topics a little bit later on. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Go ahead, and if you don't mind, go ahead and like and subscribe to the show. Follow the show, leave a review, leave a comment, all of those things. It greatly helps us out. We'd also appreciate it if you maybe share it with a friend. So we're going to go ahead and duck out for this week, and we'll catch you all next week.